I'm Kayla,
And I'm Haley.
and we majored in English for this. This week we read Book 4 of The Circle of Magic, Briar's book by Tamora Pierce. It was published in 1999.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I love little Briar.
I, um, oh, he, ooh, I'm gonna open my soda pop.
Nice. Like, I don't know if this was my favorite. This might have been my favorite book of the series. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just say it right up top.
Mm-hmm. I love Briar and love Rose Thorn. I
I
make this
know.
note later on, which I'm sure you'll probably agree with. This didn't feel like the final book in a series.
No, it definitely didn't. And I think that's because, like, there was no really, like, overarching, like, issue throughout them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I do feel like it was just kind of an introduction to all of our little friends
Mm-hmm.
for, like, to. Because she probably knew there was going to be more
Yeah, because in
books.
2000 was the first book of The Circle Opens.
Yeah. So I bet she was just like, let's just introduce everybody to these amazing little people and get on with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, when did I read this book the first time? After Daja's book. We've discussed that vague state of my life. Um, I
nice.
I originally wrote I had no idea what this book was going to be about. And then I got 5 pages in chapter 1. I was like, oh, this is the pox book.
This is the plague.
And I'm so sorry we did an episode on a fucking epidemic during these trying times.
Yeah. So much is it we don't have to talk about it, but it's a time.
We were recording this on November 5th, 2020. We had to push it back a couple days because we've been too anxious this week.
It's been just a terrible week.
Bad
So.
weeks. Okay, so what happened here? Briar was dreaming some sweet dreams, and Sandry wakes him up to ask him about his birthday. He doesn't have one. And they're traveling in a rainstorm. It's now spring. I would also like to make a retraction here about an earlier statement I had made. Briar's mother worked in an inn. She was not a sex worker. I apologize for saying so in a previous episode.
That's okay. Maybe there's a different character that is that
Yeah. I don't know.
in the later books.
Yeah. I apologize for making that insinuation before.
That's okay.
Anyways, Briar contemplates picking his birthday. So they get to Erda's house, which is basically like a public clinic for the poor that Rosethorn works at to help treat the poor.
Yeah.
Briar's friends with some of the street urchins, especially Flick, who is a street rat. But Flick doesn't come to visit like she usually does, so Briar goes off to find her and asks around. Alley Pup fetches him for Flick. I love the name Alley Pup.
Alley Pup.
Flick is sick. They basically tramp down through the sewers to go get Flick. And I love how Alley Pup was like, Flick said you were streets, and he was like, yeah, I got arrested twice. And it's like, okay, that's 12. And then like he flexes on Alley Pup and was like, yeah, I started stealing at 4. And it was just like, okay, boys.
All right, Briar, calm it down.
Yeah. Okay, so he walked over and knelt beside his friend, except for a ragged belly wrap of some pale cloth. Flick was naked. Her skin, normally deep brown, was covered with even darker spots and blotches from hairline to toes. Some on her left shin had emerged into welts. They looked stretched and painful. Her lips cracked and bled. Her eyes were glassy with fever. Heat rose from her to press Briar's face. Now Briar saw that Flick's tongue was covered with a dense pale coat. He could even see blue spots on the inside of her cheeks. Close up, he told her. Let me just see your back. Obediently, Flick turned onto her side. The spots were as thick as the back of her body as on the front. Asking permission and getting it, Briar lifted the band on her belly wrap. The spots continued on the girl's hips and bottom. You can lay flat again, he said when he was done. As she flicked her, he backed up until he was on level ground. There he sat on his heels, arms wrapped around his knees to think. For an apprentice maker of medicines, as Briar was now, his old life in Dead Man's District had been useful. There he had seen all manner of sickness and injury. Now he ran through those that he had witnessed close up. Smallpox and all the other poxes were old enemies, as was the Black Death. They looked nothing like what riddled Flick's skin.
Oh boy.
Flick says the pox of some kind. Briar knows Rosethorn needs to come help, and they apparently have put together a system to use plant magic to communicate. It's cool as hell. So, Rosethorn examines Flick and is I need Nico. And Nico's at the Duke's with the girls, so Briar rings up the old mental mind link. Over at the Duke, something is troubling Nico, so him and the Duke have a private convo. We learn later on that Nico, literally the night before, had a vision that an epidemic was coming. And it's like, you couldn't have seen that sooner?
I'm getting another call.
Oh
Son
my
of
God.
a bitch. 1 second.
So Sandry is like, so over the Duke, something's troubling Nico. We already talked about that. Sandry's like, love seeing Trissa pretty clothes that actually fit her properly. And you know what? What a good friend, Sandry. Being like, my friend is wearing ill-fitting clothes. I will take her measurements and craft her some beautiful garments. And
Sandry's so sweet.
At this point, I have this lovely note that says, and LOL, ha 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 ha, this is a book about an epidemic and quarantining, ha 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 ha.
So glad I don't know what that's like.
Yeah. There's a lovely quote later about how quarantining can ruin a city.
There was, like, way too much, like, realistic shit in this book for my liking.
Yeah. So Rosethorn and Briar have to quarantine because of this unknown illness. Thank fuck that Tamora appears when the pox route and not a respiratory illness. But, later on. Okay, so we get Flick out of the sewers, but Alley Pup runs. Nothing really comes of that, like, Alley Pup line.
Well, at least we find out later that it's passed through the water and not through, like, contact. Yeah. So, like, he's not out there getting other people sick, at least.
Yeah, so they're going into quarantine. At Erda House, the whole house is in quarantine, and what the fuck is a belly wrap?
I don't know.
It's mentioned twice, and I don't know what it is, because Googling it only brings up pregnancy belly wraps. Is it like, on the, which cover was it, where it had Briar on the cover in his little outfit?
Sandry's book?
I think so. He's, like, wearing that outfit, and there's, like, a piece of cloth tied around his tummy. Am I thinking of the right book? I might be thinking of a different book. Okay, wait. This fan art, I think it might be, like, like, Eastern clothing, they have, like, that piece of cloth that ties around their waist.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a belly cloth. A belly wrap.
I don't, why would she be wearing one of those?
I don't know. Also, apparently, these books had different names originally, and not just Sandry's book and Briar's book. We'll discuss that later. Apparently, this book was originally called The Healing in the Vine.
That's such a great name.
Yeah. Anyways, so... this book is so triggering. They have to make Briar wear a mask. And he's like, why? And they're just like, you have to. He's like, okay. And Rosethorn is annoyed that she has to quarantine too, but she knows he can come with a cure. But now Dedicate Crane is in charge of the cure. So she's pissy about that. So Rosethorn is taking samples from Flick, Briar, herself so they can track down the disease better.
I read the word dung too many times in that section. I just have to say.
Feces.
I know, just say poop.
Yeah, shit. Daja is in the forge and hears Frostpine screaming at some woman from the water temple. Apparently the water temple only has 5 the spelled boxes needed for transporting samples, and Frostpine is just like, you need more of that during the regular flu season.
And now we have this unknown disease.
Yeah. So they're gonna make a bunch more of those spelled boxes with Daja's help, and they're gonna forge until they drop. The next morning, Dedicate Crane comes to Discipline Cottage. He asks Lark to make him and his workers special masks and gloves to keep them safe from the pox, so they won't get sick as well. More victims of the plague have been found and brought to Erda House. Dedicate Henna from the Water Temple comes to help. So far, 13 have died and 65 are sick. Henna makes Rosethorn and Briar go to sleep, and Briar wonders when Roach died and he became Prior. Prior? Briar. He floats between the girls to see what they're doing. Dodge is building boxes, Sandry's making poultices. In the middle of the night, Triss wakes to rain and goes out to the wall. Nico joins her there and asks her to stop the storm. Nico thinks the pox is waterborne. Triss can't move the storm because there's too many systems over the area. And they learn that the blue pox has spread from the slums into the city proper. At the clinic, more and more are being brought in. But Flick might be getting better, though. Briar has work to do. Yeah. Briar has work to do. Some asshole stole all the medicine out of the clinic, so they have to pour magic into what is left there. So they get at it, and Rosethorn starts crying at one point, and Briar comforts her. I'm going to read this quote. Coming out of his trance after waking a basket full of red clover, he discovered Rosethorn was missing. He found her in the farthest corner of the room, her back to him and her hands over her face. Rosethorn, who was terrified most of those with sense and everyone without it, was crying. Worse, she wept in the soft, dull way that meant she'd been at it for a while. He wrapped his arms fiercely around her waist, resting his cheek on her back. I'll find that light-fingered woman if I have to turn over every rock between here and the bite of fire, he whispered passionately. Wherever she took the coin she got from selling your medicines, they ain't far enough to dodge me. I'll cut her into bitty chunks for you. Would you like that? You could grill her over fire and then feed her to sharks, like the ways you always threatened me. Wouldn't that be fun? I'm sorry, Rosethorn whispered. I didn't mean to do this. To hear her apologize for a fit of weeps just as the girls did nearly broke his heart. He never guessed how much of himself he tacked to Rosethorn, who'd feared nothing and nobody. I'll give you her skin for a drape, he offered. Just tell me and I'll do it. I'll bring you her nicking fingers and pickle juice. No, she said, trying to smile as she turned to face him. A boy and his mother figure!
It's so sweet.
Like, ugh. I'm just glad that this is just a pure boy and his mother figure relationship.
I know. We made it through the whole series without a problematic relationship.
I think mostly because they're 12 the entire time. There's no problematic relationships in this series. Well, but like between people of the same age later on. Anyways. Briar rings up Triss on the mental link and has her bring a bunch of plants, including a shotgun, to the sick house to cheer them up, and the plants bolster Rosethorn up. Apparently Duke has now given them the warehouse to use, as the blue pox was across the entire city, and Briar can't go home. And they're also burning the bodies.
Lovely.
Love to see it. Flick is getting sicker now. And Briar knows he can't save her, and he stays with her as she dies. Dedicate Crane has come up with a test. It's this like little oil test where he's like put like potions or whatever the fuck in the oil, and you put it on your forehead, and then if it turns white, you're infected. And if it stays red, you're not infected. But if you get infected in the next 2 weeks, it'll turn white.
Where can we get one of them? Yeah.
I would love such a thing, Dedicate Crane.
Come through, Dedicate Crane, please.
So Briar can now go home, so can Rosethorn. So they go home and rest up. Crane comes by the next day, and then the four find out that all 4 of their damn teachers are great mages. Like, they're just like, why don't you leave Rosethorn alone and go get, like, a great mage to help you? And he's just like, do you not know that Rosethorn is a great mage? And they're just like, what? And they're just like, Lark too. And they're just like, huh? And then Dasha was like, I also know Frostpine is also a great mage, but I did not bring it up because that is his business, not mine.
Yeah, that was my favorite.
Yeah. So anyways, Rosethorn and Briar are going to go work with Crane to find a cure. Because Briar has quick little hands. Briar has a nightmare about Flick. When he wakes, Sandry comes and comforts him. He says he should pick a birthday to be the day that Flick died, so he can remember her. And Sandry says no, because no one who's truly your friend would want you to feel bad for knowing them.
Oh.
I know. Then Dodge and Triss come downstairs, and Triss is carrying a newly returned Shriek. So Briar and the Rosethorn go get to work for Crane, and it's grueling. I just love this description of science meets magic. It's very cool. Briar thinks there might be magic in the blue pox, and they eventually recruit Triss to be Crane's scribe, and it's so funny because Crane is just like, yeah, you're gonna do what I want, and Triss is like, excuse me, we're doing this at Triss pace, not Crane pace. And Triss confirms that she sees magic in the pox as well, so they fetch Nico. The next day, Nico and Triss go to the sewers to see how it's spreading, and this is just like a fun little session where Triss is just like, I don't want to go into the sewers, and Nico, the most fussiest man alive, is just like, I'm also in the sewers, Triss, let's get going. And Triss is just like, oh yeah, he is very particular. He even checks silverware before he uses it. And it's like, what a fussy man.
I love it.
So the pox is spreading and to the temple now. Great. Nico and Triss follow the source with magic, and back over in the greenhouse with the workroom doing all this pox stuff. A fucking younger dedicate spills a tray of pox essence onto Rosethorn, and they're just like, oh no. She's like, nothing's happened yet. It didn't even touch me. Haha. She's like, Rosethorn, you fool. Nico and Triss end up out of the sewers and are still on the hunt. They end up at a door with a lock, and Triss calls on Briar, was like, how do I pick this lock, boy? So it's a mage's room, and she's dead. Basically, she jumped a bunch of potions together like a fool and then dumped them into the sewer, and thus the pox.
Idiot.
Also, Nico and Triss might be cursed, but this gets glossed over very quickly.
Cursed? I missed that.
Because that person's just like, oh yeah, she was a mage, and tells them about her. It was like, well, is the curse on her door gone now because she's dead?
Oh yeah, whoever enters is cursed or whatever.
Yeah. So they present the findings to Crane and Rosethorn, and y'all, guess what? It was a weight loss potion.
I hate it.
Gross. That was also a really gross sip I just took. I'm so sorry. Anyways, they be working hard. Briar's scared that Rosethorn will get sick. And then Crane announced sternly, you, gods defend us. Briar looked to see what was made. Crane speak as he had. Rosethorn had turned to face the room, bracing herself on the counter with one hand. For a moment, Briar knew only that something was wrong, but he wasn't sure what it was. Rosethorn, no! Triss wailed softly. Why is everyone staring? Demanded the woman. Briar shut his eyes, then opened them. Immediately he saw the thing that had changed. The red thumbprint on her forehead had turned white. Rosethorn saw it on their faces. Oh my, she said weakly. It was that spill, I suppose. I wish we could make these clothes skin tight. No, Briar cried, going to her. No, it can't be. It can't. The spot would have turned color right then, wouldn't it? He asked Crane, trying not to plead. So apparently her magic had kept the disease at bay, and the oil hadn't picked up the diagnosis yet, but as her magic burned lower, the more the pox took hold. And now Rosethorn is sick, and she can no longer do research. What were you feeling at this point, Hales?
I was upset, but also I accidentally read that she got sick on the Wikipedia. So, like, I knew that was coming, but I had no idea how bad it was about to get. So,
oh yeah,
that's when I started having feelings.
Mm-hmm. So Briar wants to go with Rosethorn and take care of her because she's basically his mom, and she makes him stay and help work on the cure. Triss informs Sandry of what has happened, and her and Lark are going to bring Rosethorn home. Days pass, and Dedicate Henna dies. Fever comes to Rosethorn, and they are no closer to finding a cure. Crane gets 2 new breakthroughs, but Rosethorn has developed spots. More progress on the cure is made, but Rosethorn is getting weaker, and she is sure she's going to die, and I am very upset about this passage. I did not include it, but she basically tells Daja for them to take care of Briar when she dies.
I know. And Daja's like... Sorry, go on.
No, you said what you were going to say.
Daja's like... Triss and Sandry would have tried to sugarcoat this and say, no, you're not going to die, but Daja's a traitor, and she tells it like it is, and she's like, we will. And it's so... Oh.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
So Crane has gathered enough about the pox to start creating cures. They have some, what they test on, called human essence, basically like animal testing, but no animals. And it's magic, it's a magic test or whatever. It apparently took them 8 years to develop this, like, liquid or whatever.
Just to see if, like, it will kill humans.
Yeah. So days pass as they try and fail, and then, several hours before dawn, Little Bear's yapping roused everyone. Briar lurched out of his blankets to see what had set the dog off. Lark, Sandra, and Tris sat up, blinking. Oh, they're also all sleeping together on the floor in the living room at
Oh,
this
I
point.
know.
Dodger stuck her head out of Rosethorn's room. Opening the front door, Briar found Crane about to knock. The tall dedicate looked as exhausted as a man could look. He clutched a flask in one hand. One of the cures worked, he told the boy in a croak. I told Osprey to create more and try it on the other volunteers at the infirmaries. I want to administer this dose to Rosethorn myself. Briar lets him in. So then Rosethorn gets better. She's conscious in herself. Lark goes and hides in her room and cries so much. Okay, it takes 5 more days to get enough of the cure ready to start being distributed, but Rosethorn now has a respiratory illness, and Briar is upset.
She can't stop coughing, and it's like, okay.
And there's, like, not enough healers to come heal her.
Yeah.
So, and her magic is burnt all the way down. She's going to die. And Lark is like, I'm going to go get Moonstream. She's not dying. Then she says, do not give her any of your magic at all. If you do, you will die with her. But then Rosethorn begins to seize and starts to die, and Briar can't sit by. He begins to feed her magic and uses the Shockin' Tree, and the girls come and anchor Briar. So Briar basically goes to the underworld and drags Rosethorn back. He basically blackmails her into it. And it's so sad.
It is so sad.
I have some horrible little quotes to read. Her eyebrows came together with a nearly audible click. Her red mouth pursed. She looked better, healthier, more alive than she had in weeks. Absolutely not, she said firmly. Turn right back around. Girls, she called. Bring 'em in. Nope, he informed her. Not without you. Don't be absurd, she snapped. You have a long life in store. So do you, he replied stubbornly. I did good work. I did important work. And now it's over. Perhaps I didn't want it this way and this soon, but you can see there's another lifetime worth of labor here. She looked over her shoulder at the garden, which so clearly needs someone very good to look after it. Cleaned up properly, it would be magnificent. I don't care, Briar said flatly. We don't belong here. We belong with the girls and Little Bear and Nico and Frostpine. Yet I'd seen her flinch at each name, knowing it gave her pain to hear them, and not caring. She wanted to leave him. And yes, Crane, you'd be leaving him behind. And what of Lark? Her most of all. Tell me that doesn't matter to you. Rosethorn looked down, her mouth working. Come home, whispered Briar. Then the saddest part, you're breaking my heart, he said quietly. She straightened her back to him. I can't go back, she said patiently. It'll hurt. Excuse me for thinking it's worth it to pick up a few ouches, he cried. She was not coming back for any street rat. Briar had playmates to look after him. Briar didn't need a great plant mage who kept his heart in her pocket. Excuse me for thinking maybe you like me enough to want to come home. I like you, boy, she said gruffly. I love you, and I am dead. That's that. He took a breath. Here was the end of the debate. She wouldn't change her mind, not now. Already he could feel Sandry's grip on him fray. They were never supposed to have been able to do this in the first place.
Ruffaroni.
And then he starts to cut away the ties to Sandry to stay with Rosethorn. Briar doesn't think he has a life without Rosethorn, so he'd rather die. And Rosethorn is like, okay, fine, I will come back to life, but I will make your life hell. We're going to talk about more about, like, Briar's self-worth later. So Briar and Rosethorn wake to Moonstream. She helps them, and when Rosethorn stopped breathing, apparently part of her brain had died, so she could no longer speak. Moonstream, I have tears in my eyes, oh my god. Moonstream orders them not to talk about what has happened, because apparently, it was not possible. And she's like, no one needs to know what you four have been up to in here. So, 2 months pass. The four are lounging on the roof. Nico comes up, and it has been a year since the four all met one another. Sandra is going riding with the Duke. Nico and Tris have lessons, and Daja is going to the forge. Briar thinks of his birthday. He still hasn't picked one. And then, the day that had changed him for all time, and marked the turning from Roach to Briar, had been a day he'd come to the same roof. He'd been lazing, watching clouds, and thinking of nothing when his contemplation had been interrupted. "Come on, boy," a gleeful voice cried from the garden below. "You're wasting daylight." It was the same voice that called to him now. He got to his feet with a sigh, but the truth was he didn't want to waste the light either. You never knew when you need it and not have it. "What's the chore today?" he yelled down at the Rosethorn. "Weeding," she called back. "It's summer, isn't it? So it's always weeding." Her speech was a little slurred, and might always be. Still, she could speak clearly. Better yet, her mind was as sharp as ever. She called to him to come down and work in her garden the day after his arrival at Discipline, the 20th day of the goose moon, which was tomorrow. The girls would be vexed at getting so little time to prepare, but they would adjust. They would know, as he did, that his life began when Rosethorn invited him into her world. "Briar," she called. "It ain't running away without us," he yelled in reply, and climbed back into the house. The end.
So I think what made this even more emotional for me was because I listened to like the very end, like the last half of not the very end, like the last half of the book on audio,
Oh yeah, and it's the full
and
cast.
it was the full cast, and it was like, this is how I fell in love with these characters, and now it's the end, and it's Briar and it's Rosethorn. Ugh, man, I was just straight up bawling at my desk.
Yeah, it's just so. We'll get into more about like the relationship because it very much is like a mother-son relationship between them, and okay, let's talk about love. Lark and Rosethorn, our favorite lesbians.
I wish we had it on paper, this book, but you know, you can't have everything.
I think it might not be for a while.
Damn.
Yeah, so I have a quote. Rosethorn had dismounted. Now she stood ankle-deep in mud, arms wrapped tight around Lark, her face buried in Lark's shoulder as the other woman held her. She didn't seem to be crying. She just hung onto her friend for all she was worth. This was after Rosethorn gets out of quarantine. Oh,
Wow.
Theme park. Mom.
Oh. Motherly love, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. Rosethorn is just Briar's mom now. That's how this works.
That's the way the cookie crumbles.
The quirky cumbles. Okay, rep station? Toot toot?
Yeah.
Triss's classism is ripe at the start of this book. She's just like, people are poor because they're poor. And then Lark is just like, you're stupid and classist.
Oh, man.
And she's just like, the poor can't afford to stay healthy because they're poor.
Jesus.
God. So, okay. And then the biggest, like, actually, like, this could be the theme, but, like, this whole book is Briar dealing with his class change. And how, Rosethorn is, like, his anchor. Like, the girls are important, but, like, without Rosethorn, he doesn't feel worth anything because she's the first person, besides Nico, to see that he was worth something.
Right. And I think this was a good book. Like, Briar's book was the best one to end on because I really feel like he's the one that has changed the most.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So I have this quote about how Briar's dealing with his class change. "Worms and flukes," asked Briar, not sure he'd heard right. "Parasites in her body. They live on her. I would imagine before Rosethorn cleaned her up, she had fleas and lice as well." Briar was about to ask, "Don't everybody?" when remembered he had not since his arrival at Winding Circle. Who am I? He wondered for a moment, shocked. Who am I really? Like I shucked being Roach the street rat, like worn out clothes, but Roach was who I was for years. I can't just strip away years, can I? I'm so sorry, my cat just barged into the closet. Get out! There's nothing for you in here. Get out! Get out!
Oh no.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah, so like Briar deals with this class struggle so much in this book. Like Like, and I think it also became full circle because Crane accepted him for his work. When the book won, Crane wanted him thrown out of Winding Circle for stealing the tree.
Oh, yeah.
So.
That's definitely full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle, circle of magic? Wow.
Wow.
That was stupid. I'm so sorry for even opening my mouth.
Yeah, but it's just like this book dealt with class in a way we haven't seen so far. I feel like because Briar, he's just like, yeah, I grew up in the slums and now I live in a temple and I do like all this stuff. And when did I stop being Roach and when did I become Briar? So it's almost like his identity as well because he doesn't know who he actually is. And that's something we kind of live with for a while with Briar. I believe in his book, In the Circle Opens Street Magic, he's still struggling with that idea
Mm.
of who is Briar Moss? Is he just this identity he assumed when he came to Winding Circle? Or is that who he actually has been the whole time? Just he didn't have the chances to be himself. Because he had to grow up very fast. Because he says his mother died when he was 4, and he
Yeah.
was turned out to the streets when he was 4 years old, and was taken in by the thief lord. So it's rough for the boy.
It's rough for the boy.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else
But
from Representation Station?
um no, not really. I can't really think of anything.
Oh, Lark talks about how she also lived in a slum at one point.
Oh.
Because
I don't
she
remember that.
talks, because she had to quit tumbling in the circus because she developed asthma, and so she didn't have any money, and she had to live in the slums in Summersea before she found out she had thread magic and came to Winding Circle.
Oh yeah, is she telling Triss about that? Is that
Yeah,
when
when
she
she's calling,
like
yeah, when she's calling Triss out on her classism.
yeah. Um I really can't think of anything.
Hmm.
Sorry. Sorry,
No,
I'm the
it's fine.
worst.
This book basically just only focused on that and a fucking pox.
I guess the fact that the potion that killed everyone was a weight loss potion. So even in fantasy, you can't escape society's expectations for the human body
The
because
fat phobia is strong.
that lady, she was gonna sell it to everybody, make so much money.
Yeah. Okay. Does this book hold up? Yeah, pretty well. Well,
Unfortunately, it was a little too real.
before 2020, a very good book.
Yeah.
Maybe in 2022 we can read it again and laugh. Night of the Living
Sorry,
Author.
I'm looking at the news.
No.
I was a
Get
little
off.
distracted.
Stop doom scrolling. Get off.
Okay.
So, this is the end of this first quartet, but it doesn't really feel like it. It still feels like we're on the tip of the iceberg for these 4.
Mhm.
Granted, there are 7 more books in this series, so
Right.
yeah. Oh, this is the part where I actually wanted to look up what the original names were for these books.
Oh,
So,
yes, definitely.
okay. I am looking. So, Briar's book was originally called The Healing in the Vine. Triss's book was called The Power in the Storm. And then Daj's book was The Fire and the Forging. And then what was Sandry's book?
It was the thread in the yarn.
Stop! I wonder why the name changed. Maybe it was just the names in like a different country.
Maybe for like a translation or something.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, is this it? This is just a combined book of of Sandry's book and Triss's book, and it's called Book 1 and 2, Water and Fire.
Oh,
What is that
interesting.
about?
Okay.
I just love how Tamora appears. No consistency across anything ever.
No, never.
The magic in the weaving.
Yes.
The
That's so
magic in the
good.
weaving. That's what it originally was called. Oh, let me go on the Wikia and see why. Does it tell me why on the Wikia? No. Oh, apparently there was also these rough drawing covers. Like extremely rough. I'm gonna send you a screenshot of the UK book. Why? Yeah,
I
so I think in the UK they were called like the Magic and the Weaving, the Forge and the Fire, the whatever instead of like Sandry's book and Tasha's book. So I just want you to look at what this cover for the UK 2004 issue of Sandry's book was.
Oh my god. What is this?
I don't know, and I hate it so much. Oh, The Power in the Storm is so much worse. Get ready for it. This is Triss's book.
Also, Sandry has brown hair.
She is brown blonde.
Oh, okay. I feel like oh god. I feel like I drew these.
No. Okay. Yeah, there's just some questionable book covers for these books. The original UK book covers were cool. Like they were like hands doing stuff. So, and then there's like the original American covers where it's like the circle with the like four little circles of like their different magics.
Yeah, I like both of the like popular versions, but I was just mad that I didn't get all the same editions from the library.
Yeah.
That's my only complaint.
Yeah, apparently I got this hot gossip from friend of the podcast, Bridget, who knows more about publishing than we do because she actually works in commercial and academic publishing. The reason why there's no like new Tamora Pierce books in print right now is because she's trying to move all the Circle of Magic books under Penguin Random House, who owns all the Tortall books.
Oh, nice.
And
Maybe
so
they'll
like
get a
there's
new revamp of the covers.
yeah, but then that's causing an issue because Scholastic, they don't like to give anything up.
I do like that at least all new Tamara Pierce books, they at least have like the same font across the board, so at least there's that.
Yeah, when Penguin Random House acquired all the Tortall books, they did that very uniform rebrand.
Thank God. It's as if marketing didn't exist before like 2012.
It was like every single time they ordered a new print of the books, they were like, new covers for all of them. Maybe this time they'll sell better. And it's like, maybe if you marketed them better?
No kidding. Pay someone. Some of them really looked like someone in Photoshop or like Microsoft Paint was like, fuck it, I'll do the cover.
We don't mean to shit on these graphic designers. It's just kind of a little weird that one series has so many covers. Like, we counted it for
I
the Immortals.
know.
They had like 8 different covers over the course of like 20 years. When like other book series, like say Harry Potter, there's only 2 covers.
Yeah.
There's the original covers. Well, I guess like for the different markets, there are different covers. But because the UK covers are different than the US covers. And then they just put out those new covers. But those are the only 3 I can think of. But then other country markets had their own. But Tamara Pierce, one market, so many different covers.
Just for absolutely no reason.
I can't tell at all. Twilight, you get 2 options. You get the apple or you get Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. Those are your 2 options. So, yeah. Okay. So, rate that book. This 9, it made me cry at work.
Yeah, at least it was the end of the day, so like I didn't have like mascara running down my face in the morning, but
Oh no.
I was definitely crying at my desk, like real tears. Like
I had to quickly close tabs and go look at something else.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so also 9. Sorry, I didn't write.
Yeah. How believable was the magic? Love that intersection of magic and science, baby.
I know. I really liked the science aspect because, like, the thing I'm trying to write right now is, like, a mix of science fiction and fantasy. So, like, I needed that science magic inspo because I'm struggling. So
Yeah, I really liked how, like, obviously it was 1999 science, but it was very much okay, we're going to apply the scientific method and how would magic work within that. And it was very obvious she had sat and thought about it for a while.
Yeah, just like the stripping the thing down to the essence and figuring out what goes into it, what will cure it. It was very cool. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, it was oh my gosh, there's a cat touching me. I wonder, like, how much research she did on, like, epidemiology going into this book was.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've just never experienced any kind of epidemic or pandemic before this year, so I don't know if, like, people normally just think of these, like, is it on people's minds? Quarantine? Like, it's never something I ever thought about before. But,
Yeah.
like, it's obviously a thing with the plague, so I don't know. I just said nothing. That was nothing.
It was also, like, a little, like, oh, in 1999 we knew wearing face masks prevented communicable diseases.
No kidding.
Not so much in 2020.
Gosh. We can't talk about it. We can't talk about real world.
The PPE. We love the PPE.
My friend of the pod, Connor, he tweeted on election day, he was like, voting seems particularly dystopian this year, and then there was like this gif that said, I prefer fictional dystopia. I want to make a gif that says, I prefer fictional epidemics.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
boy.
will we let our middle school selves read this book, Haley?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Like, I did cry. I had feelings.
I did cry, but they were like good feelings because it was like good crying. It was like happiness that filled my heart at the end. Of course, when Rose Thorn was dying, I was crying, and it was not a good feeling.
Yeah.
But then she comes back, and the ending is very good, happy crying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my cat is literally like having a freak out session. Won't leave me alone. And we're done with the podcast. So this was a short little episode. Didn't really take a lot of notes because this was once again a 250-page book on a very triggering topic for us.
No kidding.
So
next week will be better. We'll have
next
fully
week, who knows what's
going to
happen because we're reading Six of Crows and Lee has not treated us well so far on this podcast.
I have a good feeling about this though.
I don't know. Maybe these books are overhyped because I saw some people hate these books. So
everyone's gotta hate something.
Okay, yeah. Next week we are reading Six of Crows, and the week after that, Crooked Kingdom. So check in for that, boys.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go check on my embroidery.
I'm gonna go eat dinner.
Oh, fun. Bye.
Bye-bye.